past the wire at the Breeders' Cup, Big Race Gym,
Jon
King,
Stettin.
just outside the paddock at beautiful Del Mar, where the post position draw just wrapped up. And like you said off the top, John, when we were sitting there, most of the post positions don't matter all that much, but there are a few that may or may not make a difference.
That's exactly right. For the most part, I think the draw is a little overrated and overhyped. You know, the exceptions, in my opinion, are probably the Breeders' Cup Turf Mile, because it's a 2-turn mile as opposed to a 1-turn or a shoot mile, and being drawn on the outside can be a little bit troublesome, especially when you've got horses from, you know, all over the world coming in that are not used to those sharp, tight turns. So, you know, the draw there can be somewhat important. I'm also a little concerned in, you know, the mile and the 16th 2-turn races for the juveniles. It's a little tough for them to lose that ground into that first turn, but for the most part, I think it's a little bit overhyped and a little bit overrated.
Well, we'll run through a few of them, and we'll get to the turf mile with Carl Spackler drawing all the way outside in the 12-hole. But let's start with the juvenile fillies turf. Lake Victoria looks pretty strong in there. She drew the rail. How much do you think that plays into her ability on Friday?
You know, she's super talented, and if you've watched, you know, a lot of the Group 1 racing overseas and even the Breeders' Cup the last couple of years, Ryan Moore is like the new Calvin Burrell on the grass on the rail. I mean, he just finds a way through. He's super patient, and I mean, if you ride that way enough, eventually you're going to get stopped, and it's not going to work out for you. But he's just been masterful at that, and she's got a lot of talent. And you know, sometimes these races tend to spread out, and that gives you an option to kind of get off the rail. So I think that she's good enough that she's going to be able to, you know, work out a trip, and he's going to be able to guide her in a good spot. So I don't view it as a hindrance, and you know, saving ground on the grass, going you know, a short 2 turns is never a bad.
In the juvenile, favored East Avenue draws the rail. Second choice, Chancer McPatrick draws the outside in the 10-hole. How do you think either one of those plays either into their strengths or perhaps any weaknesses for either of them?
Well, in my opinion, I think that race is more, is going to be decided more by the pace than it is really by the draw. I think, you know, East Avenue got a good draw on the rail. He's got a lot of speed. I don't know that he'll have as much speed as he did last time, because that was on the stretch out for the first time. Now he's been around the ground, so you know, he might not be as keen and as sharp as he was last time, but from the rail he's going to have to go. He has looked magnificent out here on the racetrack. I mean, he doesn't look like a 2-year-old. You know, he's a beauty contest winner for sure, but you know, he's coming off a Keeneland win on a speed favoring track alone by himself. I don't know that he's going to get that kind of trip on Friday, and I think that, you know, Chancer McPatrick is not hurt by the outside draw, because he's going to drop back anyway. He shuts down and settles, and he's going to make his run. And I don't think the draw hurts either one of their chances.
Yeah. In the turf sprint, Bradsell out in the 12-hole, and just to his inside, Big Evs in the 11 post. Arguably 2 of the most likeliest winners in that race. How does that play? You know, from what I know of Bradsell, he wants to be forward. Do you worry about that being so far out in a short turf sprint like that?
I worry about everything in those short turf sprints. You know, so much can go wrong, so much can go right, and a lot of times the best horse doesn't win. The horse that gets the best trip or the right seam or the right jump does win. So, I mean, I would be concerned with either one of them way out there, because, you know, turf sprints in general, and this is a very general statement, do not get won a lot of times by horses drawn on the far outside.
Yeah.
You know, now if you're the best horse and you clear or you get the trip, you know, there's always exceptions, but I wouldn't be running to the window to bet either one of them on the far outside.
Yeah, Cogburn in post 9 in the turf sprint as well. In the distaff, Torpedo Anna obviously a heavy favorite. 4 to 5 on the morning line from post 2. You think she might even come a bit further down off of that morning line price?
I do. I think that, you know, the Japanese horse that nobody's heard of, but they're all going to hear of pretty soon, is going to take, you know, her share of money. But I think Torpedo Anna, there's a good chance she's the shortest priced favorite on a whole Breeders' Cup card.
That might work out quite well for those who don't want to back her.
That's always the case.
In the Classic, Forever Young, down on the rail, Sierra Leone, post 11. Next, all the way out in 14, I wonder if, you know, Next obviously likes to be forwardly placed. It's kind of, you know, in those long marathons where he just buries everybody. Does this, him being in the 14 hole, does that force him to go out and try and clear a bunch of horses?
No, I don't think so at all. I think it gives him, you know, coming out of those marathons, I think it gives him the option to kind of sit what I would call a stalking trip, maybe in a catbird seat, but he's also going to have to avoid being hung out wide into that first turn. So he's going to have to, in my opinion, sit, because I don't think he's going to be able to clear these horses coming out of those marathons. I think he's going to have to sit and save some ground in order to have his best chance of winning.
Raging Torrent drew the rail in the sprint.
That's a concern.
Yeah?
That's a concern. The rail in the sprint is a concern. And, you know, the bigger the field gets, the wider that concern is for me. I remember a couple of years, well, several years ago now, I bet a horse in the Breeders' Cup Sprint named Jimmy Creed. Spendthrift farm horse that Garrett Gomez rode, and if memory serves correct, he was in the 3 or 4 hole, and it was a full field, and I was very worried because he was a stalker, that he was just going to get bottled up. And if you go back and watch that Breeders' Cup Sprint, that's exactly what happened, and he didn't win. And I think he came out of that race and exploded in the Malibu and made me think, you know, he could have won the Breeders' Cup Sprint had that not happened. So the rail for Raging Torrent, if he doesn't clear, you run a serious risk in that race of getting bottled up. You know, now he's the kind of horse that may clear. I know they worked him from the gate because they say he's a better gate worker than just breaking off from a pole. And he looked, you know, good and galloped out good. So I think he's a very talented horse, maybe even more talented than he's gotten credit for. But I'm not in love with the draw for him at all.
Yeah. Like you said off the top, Carl Spackler drew out wide in the mile, post 12, Notable Speech, post 6, who you've been telling anybody who's been willing to listen about this horse, and he's certainly backed it up so far this year.
He has, and just, you know, I feel a sense of pride, the fact that he's in the Breeders' Cup, because I think, you know, after he ran, you know, one race, I said this is a Group 1 winner, no question about it, and he is, and you know, he's a contender in the mile for sure. I will say this about him. You know, I like to be objective and not get over enthused and let any kind of, you know, affinity for a horse cloud, you know, wagering decisions. But Notable Speech, I believe, is better at a 1-turn mile than a 2-turn mile. I don't know that he's going to have that same punch at a 2-turn mile. If he does, I think he's going to be very, very difficult to beat. And, you know, Charlie Appleby is probably as good as anyone getting that out of them. But I think the bigger concern with him, I think his draw is phenomenal. If he's got the same punch going 2 turns as he does with, you know, 1 turn, forget it. I think he's dangerous. If this was a 1-turn turf mile like at Belmont or a place like that, I think he'd be awfully difficult to beat.
Yeah. The dirt mile wraps it up on Saturday. Saudi Crown draws the rail, and I got to be honest, I had no idea that this horse was still in training.
No, I knew that.
It popped up on Twitter the other day that he was working like a monster here and looked pretty good on the track. The other thing that stuck out to me in that dirt mile was Cagliostro, 30-1 on the morning line. Had a tough start. Missed the break at that in that race at Saratoga. I believe it was the Forgo on Travers Day.
Right.
So could be a nice price on a runner that I know you believed in that day a little bit. Anything else in that dirt mile stick out to you?
Not really. I think that's one of the more competitive, tougher races on the card. I think it's interesting that Muth, off a bad race, going longer, winds up in that race. And, I do think a mile really suits him. So I found him a little bit intriguing, but I think that's one of the more competitive, tougher races on the card.
All right, well, of course, all of the Past the Wire coverage here at the Breeders' Cup brought to you by AmWager. Visit AmWager.com, claim your sign-up bonuses all Breeders' Cup weekend. Sign up for the seminar, still spots available.
Still spots available, not many. We will be probably closing it down in the morning, getting to the serious work.
Camera's shaking a little bit. It's a little windy.
Windy. When you're from Florida, it's cold in San Diego.
I know. Coming in from Saratoga, I thought it was gonna be beach weather, but I'm a
a
little chilly.
Couple of years ago, I came to the Breeders' Cup at Delma, and I brought a bathing suit, figuring I'll go swimming in the ocean in the morning before the races. Not happening.
All right. Well, we'll be here all week. We enjoyed the post-draw. More videos, more interviews, more insight from Jon and myself all week long. We'll see you on PastTheWire.com as well.
Ciao for now.